Good morning, Bentendo here. I'm a clinical psychologist in Las Vegas and a hardcore Nintendo fan. And gosh, I'm in such a good mood today. And I'm really excited to share this realization I've had that video games actually are a lot more fun without weed. So, for the past 5.5 months, I've been getting clean and sober. I was using psychedelic mushrooms for several months, and before that, I had quit smoking weed, and then I basically replaced it with the mushrooms. I've got 16 years clean and sober from cocaine and alcohol, but then I kept smoking weed for several of those years, for many years, and through most of those 16 years, they call it the marijuana maintenance program. So I wasn't drinking, I wasn't using cocaine, but I was still smoking weed, no major problems in my life. And then I quit the weed, and then I started using mushrooms, and I believed that they were good for my mental health, but it actually resulted in my whole life falling apart. So I realized that I'm an addict, I have to accept that, and I'm probably one of the most addictive people you'll ever meet, to be totally honest with you. And it's very liberating just to accept that. And it was really hard to get clean and sober. The first, 2 to 3 months, it was misery, really, it really was. But now I've been going to recovery meetings and working the program and, making my amends with people that I harmed when I was using. And I have to say, the miracle is starting to actually set in. And I had a really cool experience yesterday, which helped me to realize that life is actually better without weed, Weed is kind of an interesting thing. When I say weed, I mean cannabis or marijuana, obviously. Often we just call it weed. So it's an interesting thing, right? Because you don't see it a lot, but there are some people that go to 12-step recovery meetings and they still smoke weed. And I actually had a home group I was a part of, and I was very open about that, and they were okay with it. So, you can do that. You can, if you're an addict and have addictive tendencies, you can definitely not drink and not use hard drugs. And weed is definitely not as harsh as alcohol and things like cocaine and, harder drugs. It's not. It's definitely less impairing. However, it's one of those things where I discovered for myself it really was holding me back in life. And it's very commonly known, people know this, that when people smoke weed a lot and they kind of become potheads and they smoke every day, which is what I was doing, I'm an addict, and when I enjoy something I want to do it every day. And it's the interesting thing about cannabis is that one thing that we love about it, when I first got into it, that a lot of people love, is it's enhancing, right? It enhances the way food tastes. It enhances the way music sounds. It's like suddenly everything feels more magical and more, spiritual or something. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of this, when you first try it, especially for someone like me that grew up in a religious family where we had no drugs and alcohol at all, and then you try this new thing, and in my case I'd kind of separated from the religion, so I felt like it was like my new spiritual discovery. I was discovering the true spiritual way, and it felt great. And it does enhance things. It makes music, I don't know how to explain it. Anyone that's tried it understands it. There is something magical about it. But the problem is, and people sometimes smoke weed and they play video games and it's like, oh, the game feels magical, da-da-da. No, that's like all they do is they smoke weed and play video games. So the thing is when you start using it regularly, it really does have an effect on the reward system and the chemistry of the reward system. And so people do lose some of their motivation to work towards goals. And I found that for myself, it led me to kind of live in sort of a fantasy world where I would get all these kind of big ideas and all these plans. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to do all these things. and I didn't really do most of them. I would make little efforts here and there, and my apartment was just kind of a big mess, and there was no real focus in my life. I was getting my job, making money, doing my job, but and I didn't see all this. I thought it was okay, and I thought it was fine. And it actually, the interesting thing, it wasn't the weed that made my life fall apart. It was the mushrooms. So weed is sneaky. That's the thing about it. It's kind of sneaky because it's not, super toxic, but it's like powerful enough that it does have an impact on you. And like any substance, like any, drug you take for a prescription, there are side effects, right? And there are long-term effects of using weed every day and having to, I remember for me, and I remember I had friends that were like this. Every time they ate, they wanted to smoke up first. I got to smoke up and then have my dinner. I got to, I wake up and I have my coffee. I got to have weed, wake and bake. And it just becomes a way of life. And so aside from the fact that I was kind of losing my motivation to work on my goals and kind of wanting to stay in a lot and isolating a lot more and all that kind of stuff, I think the other negative side effect in relation to video gaming, which is something that I really love, is it actually did the opposite of what I thought it was doing, right? So we have this belief that it enhances things. It's like you're always enhancing, your food, your music. You go to a concert, you want to smoke up, you want to do an edible, right? Because it enhances it. But I think in a way what happens is it's almost like a balloon, and it's like every time you have an experience, you have to blow up this balloon, and the balloon just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and then it pops finally, and then it's no longer enhancing. It's just you're going back to this same kind of repetitive thing where, it's sort of this foggy, pseudo-magical thing, and it kind of loses its magic. But, eventually you feel like you have to have it, and then when you don't have it, it's like there's something missing. So, anyway, cut to what happened yesterday. So, I've been sharing that I've been playing Zelda Skyward Sword, which is a really cool game, and I have been playing that for like a week or two. But then I had this kind of insight yesterday because I had a really nice weekend. It was a really, really lovely weekend. I worked out twice, which that's a great mood enhancer. In fact, I would argue that going to the gym and getting a great workout in is probably the best drug I've ever tried. If you were to, compare it to all the other things I've tried, cocaine, alcohol, cannabis, and psychedelic mushrooms. It really is, because it makes you feel so good. It doesn't detach you from reality. It actually grounds you in reality. It enhances your physical strength. It gives you confidence. And it's such an incredible boost to my mood. So I had worked out a couple times. I was playing Skyward Sword. I'd kind of wrapped up most of my things from the weekend, and I had a few hours to just play video games. And so I was playing Skyward Sword, and I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe I should try playing Super Mario Bros. Wonder again. So what happened with that is that came out back when, like over a year ago, when I was using cannabis every day. And I was so excited to get that game and download it, because I've shared in other videos that actually my adulthood renaissance in video games began when I started replaying those original side-scrolling Super Mario Brothers games. And so Super Mario Bros. Wonder is different from Odyssey, the last major Mario game, which was more of a 3D type game, which is an amazing game. But Super Mario Bros. Wonder is a side-scrolling game. And I just remember I was playing it, over a year ago when I was first using weed. When I was using weed a lot, and not first using it, but when I was using it constantly, and weed was my thing, my go-to every day. And so I thought, this is going to be so fun. I love side-scrolling games. And I remember I tried playing Super Mario Bros. Wonder several times, and I just couldn't get into it. I was like, this is such a weird game. There's all these, like, you turn into an elephant, and there's all these new things. Because Nintendo always, they always stretch you with each new game, right? They add all these new things, all these new fun things to learn. And it's just interesting in a way that, You know, I thought that the weed was enhancing everything and making this Mario game so wonderful, but I just couldn't get into Super Mario Bros. Wonder. And then yesterday, I decided, okay, I'm going to try it again. And, you know, I have 5.5 months totally clean and sober. There's no longer any weed in my life, no mushrooms, no drugs or alcohol. And gosh, it was so weird. It was like from the second the screen came on, it just like awakened something inside me. And I realized this game is so good that when I'm smoking weed, as I was when I first tried the game, I'm actually not present enough to be able to appreciate it, right? Like, it does create this kind of fogginess, and it is like blowing up a balloon that kind of pops on you. So it was really, really, really kind of incredible yesterday to have this experience of playing this game, and I felt all the same magic and excitement I felt when I first played Mario games when I was 10, 11 years old, and then when I started playing them again at age 33, which I've shared about in another video. It was all there for me yesterday. So it was awesome. I was like, okay, now this is like one of those moments, you know, you're always, when you're getting clean and sober, you're always kind of trying to talk yourself into it. Okay, well, you know, I don't really want to be doing this, but, you know, but I had actual experienced evidence yesterday that not having weed makes my video game play better than with weed. And so now I never want to go back to smoking weed and playing video games and pairing them together. Like, I don't want that combination in my life, you know? These Nintendo games are made in Japan by this incredible team of people, and they're not sitting around smoking weed all day and, you know, and designing games for weed. No, they're like working their butts off, coming up with these really incredible forms of gameplay that you have to be present to enjoy. Your mind has to be there, and it sharpens your mind. These games are cognitive training tools that enhance our cognitive abilities, the way that our minds work, that enhance our executive functioning. And yeah, so that was an incredible lesson. So I just want to share this with anyone that has this struggle about, oh, should I smoke weed? Should I not smoke weed? You know, if you quit, it's not easy at first, right? It's not easy at first. And there's an incredible community of recovery out there. Actually, the 12-step community is the biggest fellowship in the world, and they don't make any money. It's all just people helping each other. It's really a miraculous thing. And you know, you can. It's a buffet, is how I see it. You can go in and go do the full thing, like I'm doing, or you can just, you know, go to a meeting now and then and make some connections and just, you know, get some support. But I highly recommend that if you're hooked on weed, try going without it. You know, give yourself a few weeks, a few months, and just start to notice, like, if you actually do enjoy things more that you thought you were enjoying more before. You know, it's, yeah, there's that enhancement, but it kind of ends up taking on a life of its own, and it in some ways becomes cancerous. You know, there's a cancerous quality to that weed addiction. I don't know if the word addiction is even right, because I think sometimes that word gets thrown around, and, you know, I mean, it's a very different kind of addiction from hard drugs. But that's why it's so sneaky, right? That's why it's so sneaky. So I'm really grateful that I'm getting my Mario mind back, and I've shared in other videos that I truly have found for myself that when I'm video gaming, especially without drugs or alcohol in my life, it's incredible. It gives me a sense of play and helps me to feel happier, and also it helps me, it's a reward for my goals. Like, it's a reward when I do other things, like I have a video game reward. And then it keeps me in that goal-focused mindset. So my mind is still getting to kind of be goals-focused in a playful way. And then the things that are harder to do, whether it's cleaning my room or going to my job or, you know, sometimes even just taking a shower in the morning, things like that are sometimes harder for me to do. But when I have video games in my life, suddenly everything kind of takes on this tint of playfulness. And, you know, all of my goals begin to feel fun. And and without the cannabis that's sort of enhancing everything, but actually kind of destroying the reward system in our brain, we actually get a lot more focused on our goals. So I'm excited to see what the next few months of my life are going to bring. It's amazing how much has changed already in 5.5 months of being clean and sober. I love you all, and I hope you have a beautiful day, and I hope you do something fun. And remember that you are loved, okay? You take care, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.